Supported.
Interesting.
Amazing.
Spectacular.
Outstanding.
Thrilling.
Exciting.
I think the main difference between secondary and primary is that you have more responsibilities and you feel more independent.
Yeah, definitely.
You have more control over what you want to do.
I think obviously you've got more responsibilities, and that sort of like leans in with homework as well, because you get more of it. So you have the responsibility to do that, or you get faced with consequences.
Yeah, it's definitely more disciplined, which I think is a good thing, because people don't try to go against the consequences, and they
Like more in line.
yeah, like they know where they stand. They know that if they do this, then something will happen because of it. And
Yeah.
I think that in primary school you did get consequences, but it was more like,
You can get away with more.
yeah, but
On like my first day, so I was at Anton, so there were only 64 in a year group, and like obviously here when we joined there was 180, so it was like quite a bit bigger. So I was really scared that I wouldn't make any friends and like I would get lost and stuff, but I never really did.
I think just breathe and relax, because the more you stress about it, the
yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, I understand that it's a quite big, like big.
big school.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than most primary schools, and it is. You are going to be nervous. I mean, like I was really nervous when I started, but everyone is so welcoming that you kind of just feel like you fit in, and it doesn't really like.
You don't stand out as the new people.
No,
as much.
definitely not. You get comfortable after a while, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, yes,
It's
you
not
get
so
nervous, but you will eventually settle in. And I think if you're more comfortable at the beginning before you come in, it's way better.
Easier.
Like
Yeah.
it's way easier because you just feel relaxed and you don't overthink things.
Everyone's nervous when they first come up, but I think the best way to look at it would be, instead of being scared and worried about friends and homework and stuff, I think the best way to look at it is like a new challenge, because that's how I took it. I thought, I've got all these new people that I can meet, all these new subjects I'm going to learn about, and I thought the best way is to just take it on head first.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think just don't worry, because I worried loads, and then when I got here I was like, I don't understand why I worried that much, because all the things I was worried about, none of them happened, and like
Like me.
and yeah, just don't worry.
I think, like, to be honest with you, Harrow is like a great school because of like the teachers.
Yeah, and also you always feel like really comfortable and settled in, and you never feel scared or worried.
Yeah, and the support and the relationships between students and teachers are quite effective. Yeah.
And like when I first started, I felt like I would get lost, but the prefects help, and I think it's also they provide a great opportunity for like different clubs, and you can really do like whatever you feel like. So I do netball and dance. That's just the sort of thing I enjoy.
Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to our first ever virtual induction evening. What we'd be normally doing now is having our induction evening in our main auditorium. We would have just had our year 6 students with us during the day, but what we hope is that the way we're going about this is going to be informative, and there will be an opportunity through a Google form to ask any questions at the end. So just a reminder, my name is Mr. Serridge. I'm the head teacher of Harrow, And the format for this evening will be, I will do an introduction. I'll then hand over to Mr. Cole, who will be the year leader for our new intake. And then Mr. Whitworth, my assistant head teacher, will talk to you a little bit about literacy, e-safety and our communication policy. So first thing to say is your son-daughter is joining Harrow at a very exciting time. We currently are the most oversubscribed secondary school in Tess Valley, and we are delighted by the way the school is developing and evolving, and we hope that your son-daughter really thrives in their 5 years with us. So what's important to us? Now, what I always say to parents is that you now have entrusted us with one of the most important jobs I think you can do, and that's the education and the welfare of your children. And we as a school, we take that responsibility very seriously. So the school motto is learning for life, success for all, and what we hope in 5 years' time, your son-daughter will leave here with some great qualifications, but in addition to that, they'll leave as well-rounded young people, all set to make a big difference in the wider world. So as a school, we work very much in partnership with our students and with our parents, and staff are very clear about their expectations. We're very lucky to have great teachers at our school. They work incredibly hard planning interesting and engaging lessons. We have a fantastic pastoral system, and you'll get a chance virtually to meet tutors over the coming weeks. They'll be there to support our young people when they start with us. We have a reward system. We give our students a voice as well. So we make sure we do all we can as a staff to ensure that your children are well supported. But we say to students as well that they also have a responsibility. We want them to work hard. We want them to always have high standards, whether that's both in lessons or also with their uniform. That they're always here, they're attending on a regular basis, and they're punctual to lessons. And they're actually making a good contribution to school life. And what we've got now is our new students starting what will be a 5-year journey. And you'll see some of these posters around school just showing the different aspects of school life as they move through from year 7 all the way through to year 11. And we have 3 really simple rules. Be ready, be respectful, and be your best. And we do want to work in partnership with parents, and what we'll have on the 10th of September is an information evening where we'll go through in a bit more detail then, hopefully in our auditorium, talking you through the school systems and the processes, talking through how homework is set, so you're really clear about how you can support your son and daughter at home. So details about that will come out at the start of term. And what we also are aware for our year 6 students about to move into year 7, there is going to be some anxiety. We're aware they've had a period of time outside of school, and in addition to that, they're also starting a new school. We have done a lot of work behind the scenes, working with our primary schools, working with our year 6 teachers. My transition team have already spent time in primary schools making sure that, although this is done virtually and we can't have them in school at the moment, we're making sure that we've got things in place so they feel happy and they feel safe when they join us in September. And our main focus when we start in September will be ensuring that they settle in really well. So on Friday, the 4th of September, we have an induction day, and also on Monday, the 7th of September. And the focus on those days will be very much about building relationships and ensuring that they settle into their new tutor groups. So, a few introductions. Next on will be Mr. Cole, the year leader for Year 7, and he will take them all the way through now to Year 11. You will be aware, and you'll all, I'm sure, have met, or certainly in the past maybe been taught by Miss Escrit, who's our primary liaison transition manager. And then Mr. Whitworth is going to, as I said, talk a little bit about certain aspects that you need to be aware of at the start of term. Other key personnel you'll be able to meet early on when they start with us in September will be Mrs. McLaughlin, our welfare officer, Mrs. Priest, who has the overview of students reception but also offers first aid support, Mrs. Buckley, our family partnership manager, Mrs. Meek, who is the assistant year leader, who works really closely with Mr. Cole, and Miss Tunney, who has the overview of the link. So I'm going to hand over now to Mr. Cole, who's our new head of Year 7.
Good evening, I'm Mr. Cole and I'll be your child's head of year in September. What we're going to do is I'm going to very briefly just go through everything which my role entails, and I will try and explain a few points in a bit more detail as well as we go. My first job is to look after your child's progress, so from an academic sense and also from a behaviour sense. This will be inside the classroom and of course at breaks and lunch times as well. I'll be one of your main contacts in the school. Obviously we can go through the tutors first, but I will be a useful contact that you will make as well. Hopefully that goes two ways, so if there's any concerns you have at home, please bring them to me in school. I'll be supporting the attendance policy, so you may get regular phone calls sort of to say, is there any reason that your child was late on that day, or perhaps maybe we can try and help your child get into school if there's any concerns like that. And I'll be monitoring the correct wearing of uniform, so I'll be the person who is constantly telling your child to tuck their shirt in or to make sure that their tie is the right length, but we'll get that sorted pretty quickly. To help me with all of this, I have a year team, so this consists of my assistant year leader, Miss Meek, and obviously the tutors as well. The tutor team comprises of a great group of teachers here at the school, and they will hold registration periods for your child every single morning. We've got Mr. Manson, we've got Miss Campbell, Miss Holton, Mr. Priest, Mr. Bowery, Miss Alm, and Miss Calder. They've done some introduction videos for your child as well through your primary school, so hopefully you've seen those and are feeling fairly familiar. We touched on attendance before, and obviously it isn't my job alone to make sure that your child is attending school. I work together with you, the parent, the students, the education welfare assistant, and obviously the family partnership manager to make sure that we have kind of covered all bases in making sure that your child has access to good routes into school and also making sure that they're happy while they're here. Key among this is really to make sure that we have the best progress possible. If your child isn't here, they're not accessing the learning, there's statistics actually out there to show us that if your child's attendance drops below 90%, they actually risk getting one whole target grade lower at the end in their GCSEs. One of the major concerns that parents have as we transition from primary up to secondary is this increase in school pupils, so obviously that leads to perhaps more issues amongst the peers and of course bullying as well. At Harrow we take bullying very seriously. We've got a really excellent track record, and the tutor team and the assistant year leader will help me in trying to sort of squash any sort of bullying which people might feel is happening here. The key thing to remember is that we are a telling school, so if your child does feel like they are being bullied, that contact needs to be made straight away so that we can hopefully stop anything before it becomes a bigger issue. Lastly, I just want to say that obviously we've had a very, very different transition period than any other transition period before, and to help you with that, we've tried to push lots and lots of resources towards your primary schools, and we've sent lots of things home. The best way for you to prepare for September is by really going through all of those resources. Make sure that you're familiar with the school site as best as you can. Make sure you're familiar with the key figures and the key people who are going to be there in September to welcome your child to Harrow. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mr. Whitworth. I'm the assistant head teacher that is going to be attached to Year 7. So I'll be working very closely with Year 7 this coming year and actually through their time at Harrow. I just want to run you through a couple of quick things that we at Harrow take very seriously. So the first one is literacy. We have spent a long time at Harrow developing knowledge-rich curriculums. In order for all students to access that, we very much need to develop literacy skills. So we take that very seriously as the heart of everything we do. So we will build a wide range of vocabulary. We will improve reading fluency and also work very carefully on communication skills, because we think that those things are not important just for GCSEs, but actually for students moving on post GCSE as well. To aid that process, what we have done is we've already delivered some books to the primary schools, so Treasure Island, and we would very much hope and encourage you to read that with your children over the summer. A lot of our subjects in September will focus on Treasure Island, so it's really important that you have a good understanding of that story, or the students have a good understanding of that story. I just want to run you through e-safety very carefully. Now, we know that e-safety is exceptionally important. So we want students to be working online, we want students to be using these mediums, but we want it to be in a very safe way. So we aim to educate students around keeping themselves safe online. So we have that not only built into our curriculum, but we will obviously work with you on building the resilience students need to work online safely. We have lots of information on our website to help you guide students through that, because it is a very complex issue and there is lots of things to really think about. So online bullying obviously at Harrow is not acceptable, and we will be very much thinking carefully about how we encourage students to do it sensibly. In terms of advice for parents, what we'd always say that if there are cases of this, then we must always report that abuse to the providers. We must block numbers causing concern. You check privacy settings, so students need to be very careful of the privacy settings, particularly on social media. We would suggest that in some cases that removal of the phone or removal of the internet access. What we will say is that obviously we cannot police the whole internet, so we very much want to work with you to ensure that all our students at Harrow are safe when being online. And the last thing I want to run through with you is just communication. So we think that communication with parents is exceptionally important, and we want to work with you through your child's time at Harrow. So what we would say is the first port of call is always the tutor. So an email can be made to the tutor, or a note in the student's planner is the first port of call. We can phone reception, but obviously we have a very strict policy that lessons are not interrupted. What we'd always say is that we hope for staff to get back to you within 2 working days. In terms of non-urgent meetings, we would say 3 working days. In terms of meeting, we'd always want parents, because we want to work with you, to pre-arrange those meetings. We think it's really important to talk, but that really needs to be pre-arranged. We can't have, and we don't have a policy where parents can just turn up in reception and expect a meeting. So just phone reception. A member of senior staff will try and get back to you, and we will try and arrange that in an emergency. So we have got processes, but we very much want to work through those processes. If you haven't had any contact within 2 days, please just phone reception. So we always have a receptionist on the phone, and they will follow that situation up. Okay, lovely to meet you, albeit virtually, and I'm sure I'll be working very closely with lots of you. What we'd now do is usually pass you to the tutor team, so you'd go off to the tutor team, but obviously we can't do that. So now we're going to have a tutor thing virtually.
Welcome to Harrow Community School. This presentation is part of our induction information package for new parents, and this is the tutor briefing. We believe that the role of the tutor is a vital one. They are the first point of contact for parents, the link between home and school. And if you've got any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do so either by email or telephone. But if you ring, please understand, of course, that most of our tutors are also teachers and may not be available at the time you call. Our receptionist will happily take a message for you, and we will get back to you as soon as possible, and certainly within 48 hours. At times, we understand that there will be issues and you will feel strongly about these, but we thank you for maintaining a polite and respectful manner with us, and we will always do the same for you. There are many aspects to the role of the form tutor. They are, after all, the key link for every student and will aim to build a very strong relationship with them throughout their 5 years at Harrow. One of the first things they might be doing is monitoring the school reward system, ensuring that the student has their stamps every day and that, of course, they're being acknowledged and praised for the effort and hard work that they'll be putting in. Naturally, they'll be checking attendance. We know that 96% leads to better outcomes in Year 11, and so we'll be working closely with you and your son and daughter to make sure that they can attend as much as they can. There are no excuses for lateness. We are preparing students, after all, for the world of work and making sure that they can turn up on time. Registration is at 8:45, but there's a warning bell at 8:40, so there's no excuse to be late. And one of the last things that tutors will be doing in the morning is monitoring that students are wearing the correct school uniform. We have a very clear dress code and we want high standards at all times. Registration lasts for 20 minutes every morning, and there are a number of tasks that will be carried out during this time. As part of that, the tutor will be passing on information about what's happening in school that day. There will be notices perhaps from staff briefing, or there may be notices on the daily bulletin that will concern students. Naturally, if there are any letters to be sent home, they will be handed out in registration. The tutor may also be checking the student diary, making sure that obviously stamps are being collected, that homework is being set and completed, and that you are signing the diary as well as your son or daughter. If you've got any comments or concerns, please do use the comment section in the student diary, and tutors will be checking that to see if there's anything that we can do to help. We hope that the form tutor will remain with the tutor group throughout their 5 years at Harrow. In this way they can build a really strong and stable relationship with each and every child. They will be monitoring the academic progress of each student and will be wanting to meet with you, both at our Meet the Tutor evenings, but also possibly at parents' evenings, where you can review the targets and ensure that students are working as well as they should. Of course, because we're getting to know the children really well, we'll be able to monitor their welfare as well as their academic progress. How are they developing personally as well as academically? And if you've any concerns, do get in touch. But of course, as that key person in a student's life, they will be there to apply sanctions as well as praise. So if they are persistently late or forgetting their diary or not having their uniform on correctly, they will have to apply some detentions, sadly, and or contacting you to discuss how we might rectify the problem. So this is an example of a typical tutor routine. You can see that there will be silent reading, numeracy activities which support the curriculum. There may be circle time discussion, giving students an opportunity to share their thoughts and ideas. And on Fridays, we do like to look at the news and encourage students to take an interest in what's going on about them. There is always assembly at least once a week, and for Year 7, this is on a Tuesday. We are very proud of the fact we have 3 simple rules at Harrow. Be ready, be respectful, be your best. In September, we will hand out diaries to each student. As you can see, this is an example of the page in the diary. On one side, there's space for the students to make notes. This might be about the homework or things they might need to bring for the following day. But always, on the right-hand side, there will be space for students to collect their stamps, 1 per lesson. In the diary, there is an explanation of how students can achieve their stamps. They just have to meet our 3 simple rules. Being ready by being on time and having the right equipment for that lesson, including homework that might be due that day. Being respectful to both students and staff, but also being their very best, joining in as much as they possibly can. At the beginning of every lesson, the student should get their planner out, put it on the desk, and then at the end of the lesson, the teacher will be able to circulate and put a stamp in the planner. If the planner is not on the desk, it's highly likely that a stamp will not be given. We encourage students to collect as many stamps as possible. Every stamp is equal to 1 house point. Of course, if a child is not meeting our 3 simple rules, we will give them plenty of warning. We use a system called C1, C2 and so on. So for example, if a child is talking during the lesson when they should be paying attention, we might say C1. If they stop, that is fine. If they carry on talking and being cheeky, then we'll say a C2. This would mean that the child would not get their stamp at the end of the lesson, and this would result in a cross. As parents, when you are monitoring the diary, we'd be grateful if you would look through, see if there are any crosses in the diary, and talk through the reasons for this with your child, so that they can obviously improve and eliminate poor behaviour. From experience, we know that children have lots of worries and concerns about moving to secondary school, but this is the top 10. It will be no surprise to anyone to see that being bullied is number 1. We'd like to spend a little bit of time talking through these concerns. We have a strong record in anti-bullying at Harrow Way, which is why we're the first school in Hampshire to earn the Big Award. We know that bullying does take place and we're always prepared to tackle it. But there is a difference between bullying and unkind behaviour. Is the bullying persistent and is it deliberate? There can be friendship fallouts. To try and support students, there is a helpful flowchart within the planner, and you do use this at home. If you've any concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us. To try and encourage our students to be more independent and help themselves, there are a couple of pages in their planner with some troubleshooting information. If they've got some problems, what they might do and where they might go for help. Naturally, we do have a student welfare office where the nurse resides, and she will be very happy to help any student. But of course, children should always come and talk to their tutors, their teachers, or it could be one of our student leaders who will be more than happy to help. On the first day of term, we will hand out school timetables. It will be on a piece of paper, but we'll encourage the students to cut this out and to stick it into their planner for future reference. As you can see, down the side are numbers 1 to 6, and that refers to the lessons throughout the day, and across the top are the days of the week. For example, this student would have history on Monday, lesson 1, and they'd finish on Friday with music. You can also see initials. That refers to the teacher who will be leading the lesson, and those numbers underneath, for example H4, S3, refer to the room numbers where the lesson will be taught. In the first 2 weeks of school, we will escort students around the site so they do not get lost. Homework. This is always an area of concern, if not for the students, then the parents. It is an important aspect of secondary school. It is the move from being taught to independent learning, that self-supported study, so by the time your sons and daughters are in year 10 and beginning their GCSEs, they're able to revise and work independently and prepare for those vital and crucial exams. To support our year 7 students, there are computer rooms open every lunchtime and a couple are also open after school. But there is a homework club in the library, and this is supported both by the librarian and our student leaders, our prefects. So if anyone is struggling with homework, we would recommend that they attend this. It's open from 3 to 4 o'clock every day. On Show My Homework, and we'll tell you more about this in September, you will be able to log in and track what work has actually been set every single day. To purchase our uniform, please go to Stitcher Logo, a local supplier. You can either go online to their website, and the details are on screen now, or they are going to be open Monday to Fridays as usual, but throughout the summer holidays they're going to open on Saturdays. This is a change from the usual routine because of COVID-19. Another cause for concern for Year 6 children is the notion of detention, and they're very worried about getting into trouble. I can reassure you by saying over 80% of our children never get a detention. They are used as sanctions by staff, and they can be for poor behaviour, poor work, poor effort. As I mentioned earlier, if a child gets a cross because they were persistently talking and disrupting a lesson, they will probably get a break or lunchtime detention, which could be up to 20 minutes. However, if there is no work in the lesson, or a child persistently forgets to bring their homework, although certainly the behaviour is disrupting the learning of others, we will set after-school detentions. This isn't negotiable, it is part of secondary school life, but we will always give 24 hours notice for an after-school detention. The teachers will aim to write it in the student planner as long as the child has it with them. If not, obviously, we will put a note on Sims. And obviously, we would appreciate your support in making sure that your child attends these. We are often asked how parents might help their sons and daughters make a successful transition to secondary school. Of course, it is about becoming more and more independent, but the more you support in the early days, the more successful they will be. Things like planning ahead and packing their bags the night before won't just mean that they've got the right equipment for the day ahead, but also will reduce their anxiety and worries and making sure that they've got what they need. Obviously, supporting our school expectations. Do encourage them to make sure they've got the right uniform, the right length of skirt, the shirts tucked in, the ties, and so on. It will mean they won't get into trouble when they get to school. Please encourage a routine for homework. It might be that your son or daughter is able to work in their bedroom, or you might encourage them to work at the dining room table or in the kitchen, where you can support and encourage from obviously a safe distance. And of course, it is important that all the students have pens and pencils, a calculator for maths, the full PE kit, and a dictionary always comes in useful. There are lots of ways that parents can support their sons and daughters throughout their time at secondary school. It's still about keeping those lines of communication open. Do encourage them to talk about the school day, although they probably will be quite reluctant. Do ask to see their school diary. You should be signing it each week and checking their stamps and ensuring there aren't any crosses. Praise them where it's due, and of course have those conversations if necessary. Have a look through their books, their folders and their work, and read the teachers' comments, and ask them to show what they've been learning. It's so important to encourage them and get them inspired and excited about their work. And please do try to avoid those phrases, "oh, when I was your age," or "I hated that at school," because it really doesn't help. Mobile phones can often be a bone of contention at home. We'd like to avoid that being a problem at secondary school. Our expectations are very clear. They must remain out of sight and switched off during school hours, including break and lunchtime. They are not for general use. We understand that of course the child will need to bring a phone if they're having long journeys to and from our site, but throughout the school day there is no need to use them at all. We don't want to have to confiscate that phone. If you need to contact your son or daughter, please ring us at school and we will get a message to them. Please don't risk your child getting into trouble because you've rung them. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope it's helped answer some of your questions and alleviate some of your concerns.